Iceberg model and organizational success. Understanding the organizational culture vocabulary more clearly of the iceberg model. And recognizing every aspect of what we can call the superficial organizational culture. That is, which takes the iceberg top as its home, and the deep organizational culture. Those that reside on the body of the iceberg in the depths. With their greatest impact to drive organizational work toward success and sustainability. We must know that strategy, leadership, and organizational culture are the three main pillars that determine the success of any organization, business institution, or company. Iceberg model for organizational culture. Employees and laborers in different organizations will perform their work in the desired way. When the organizational culture is aligned with the growth strategy to achieve the desired business result. The primary duty of leadership is to uphold the organizational values and beliefs through their daily actions and decisions, which helps to implement the organizational strategy. Organizational culture is the set of attributes, beliefs, and values that drive what people do and determine how to do it. Also, it is the implicit rule that determines the type of behavior of employees who are accepted, rejected, encouraged, or discouraged by the organization. While policies and employee guidance manuals developed by human resources can direct the external behavior of employees, the positively changing organizational culture can affect how employees interact, communicate with each other, and get work done. Thanks to Edward T. Hall, an American anthropologist and university professor, who developed in 1976 what the so-called iceberg model of culture, in which he explained that organizational culture is like an iceberg, characterized by being it is not so efficient as to actually see it. Because while some aspects of culture are easily perceived from the outside, which is often called surface culture, what forms the basis of a strong culture is often more deeply immersed in the organization's values and beliefs, which are called the deeper core culture. While aspects such as workplace atmosphere, dress codes, employee uniforms, regulations, policies, processes, etc. appear on the surface, while forms elements such as shared values and beliefs, attitudes towards power, competition, and basic assumptions, etc. constitute a deeper culture. From the illustrated model, we found that Edward T. Hall has shown most of the organizational culture vocabulary, and he distributed them in terms of the difficulty of discovering their patterns and structures, for the purpose of managing and dealing with them. At the top of the iceberg, we found what so-called events, that are easy to discover and deal with. For example, we found that the highest vocabulary of organizational culture comes from the search for advantages, which is the first thing that the applicant asks about for any job. What are the advantages that will accrue to me? Then followed by the question about the environment of the organization, or the business institution, or the company. Is the environment comfortable or not, and is this environment productive and profitable or not? Then the important vocabulary comes after that in the events area of the iceberg, which is clearly visible. As for diving below the water line, which separating the top of the iceberg from the rest of its submerged body, we found that the vocabulary of organizational culture becomes more difficult towards discovering its patterns and structures as we move down to the bottom, and this is also what the Professor Hall created, by distributing this vocabulary on the submerged part of the model. For example, occupational safety is a vocabulary of the organizational culture, whose patterns and structures are easy to anticipate, thus, it can be managed. And the same applies to the purpose of the organization, while if we approach to the bottom, we will find that the power, flexibility, and enjoyment, it is difficult to anticipate their patterns and structures to be depend on them, and therefore this vocabulary will need a big effort in order to discover, to deal, and manage them. Now let us delve deeper into the vocabulary of organizational culture, regardless of its location, in order to discover how these terms help in achieving organizational goals. Some may ask, what is the work environment composed of, and what is its vocabulary? Someone may jump and answer that it's an amazing vocabulary, as it expresses the availability of computers for all employees in the organization, and that all rooms of the organization have air condition. We also have a room for free food and drinks, we have convenient means of transportation, we wear comfortable and modern uniforms. And we enjoy health insurance, and availability of a free subscription for us and family, to a sports club, for doing exercise. I do love this organization. Usually, the provision of such visual aspects of the culture in the organization is considered evidence of what you think is critical to how to manage the administration of this edifice. And here many questions related to this vocabulary must be confronted, such as, are there any means which promotes work-life balance? Is there a culture of flexible hours being promoted? Is the organization encouraging its employees to take steps forward towards their well-being? These are the things that drive most successful organizations, seeking to create an organizational culture that works, to ensure for its employees feeling comfortable in all aspects of their lives. And this confirms the saying that, the advantages enjoyed by employees, and the benefits they obtain play a substantial role in making this possible. The modern organizational culture also emphasizes that, whether the work is done from home, or intermittently, not connected to the workplace, i.e. resorting to what we can call flexible working arrangements, the privileges and benefits will greatly affect the behavior of workers and their participation. And this is confirmed by one study showed that, 48% of people who change jobs, evaluate and compare current benefits with future ones as an essential part of their decision-making process towards moving to a job elsewhere. The interest of organizations, in providing means of well-being for their employees, and working to devise plans to motivate them, will help to invest in the capabilities of these workers, extract the best from them towards doing business, and push the organization toward success. If we talk about the appearance and dress of workers, the decision-maker must have the answer to many questions that revolve around this topic, such as: do staff wear formal clothes all the time? Do they all wear a uniform? And what is expected of staff's appearance during working time? Some may think that talking about the appearance of employees is a kind of exaggerated luxury, but in fact, the employees' clothes and appearance have a great impact on how the organizational culture is perceived. Among the vocabulary of organizational culture is the availability of the necessary technologies to manage daily work. Are the technologies that are used compatible with the goals and strategies of the organization? Is the technology also used to enhance the organizational culture? Certainly, the technologies used play an important role in defining the organizational culture, although technologies alone cannot create or change such culture. They serve as an essential tool for enhancing the culture among employees, as they may reflect values and assumptions related to the course of the business, and other related to the future workforce of human resources. Here it's important for the decision-makers to have a clear understanding of what is to be achieved before choosing the appropriate technology, which must comply with organizational goals and strategies, and also have an appropriate alignment with organizational values and beliefs. What is the tone or layer of your messages? How does your organization deal with others? What signals do you use to communicate about your organization? The issue of communicating with others is one of the matters that must be considered carefully, and we must ask ourselves, how do we choose the ways to communicate with others, and how can communication significantly affect how the organizational culture reaches people? Therefore, it would be useful to work on choosing the right combination of words, gestures, tone of voice, and the right communication platform. To do this, it is necessary to define speaking behaviors, the nature of the language used, polite or crude, behavior, formal or informal, communication, direct or indirect, choice of words, clean, strict, arrogant in nature, etc. It will be the responsibility of the organization to document a clear set of guidelines on acceptable language, tone, etc., and how to use it. It is to be shared with everyone in order to ensure a consistent tone of the language. The rewards and certificates of appreciation that are given to the employees have a tremendous impact on the issue of the accumulation of experience they have, and also on the organizational culture. Through these rewards and certificates of appreciation, a perception is born among people about what the organization represents, and what its values and beliefs are promoted, by providing these rewards and certificates of appreciation, helping and motivating workers to increase focus and strive to quickly achieve goals through their daily activities. Therefore, resorting to use of technology to implement incentive programs, rewards, and appreciation in a systematic manner by the organization will create a strong organizational culture and a highly motivated workforce of human resources. From what was previously touched upon of the vocabulary of organizational culture that appears on the surface of the iceberg model, which has a clear vision, and which we figuratively call the vocabulary of surface culture, that aspect of culture is reflected by a person or a group of persons. An external cause create an event. In return for that, we as decision makers in organizations, we all tend to analyze complex information and generalize what we see and hear, to draw simpler conclusions, or in other words, provide shortcuts for determining how things are done within an organization. Also, what we see on the peak, the top surface of the iceberg, reflects the deep foundation for building the organizations, which is reflected in the values, beliefs, and basic assumptions that drive employee behavior. But if we start diving under the surface of the water, to discover the vocabulary of the deeper organizational culture, we will find that every organization is built on a set of rules and distinctive characteristics which determine its nature, despite the fact that this is not seen by the outside world. And these characteristics can elevate these entities, or cause them to collapse. These characteristics reflect a deeper cultural vocabulary based on beliefs, values, prejudice, coercion, power, competition, health, well-being, and various other factors that cannot easily be perceived or evaluated as externalities. So, when you start a new job after extensive research on a company, multiple rounds of interviews, conversations with different people within the company, etc., you will tend to form certain expectations about this company, yet you may notice that things always not going in context as you'd expect. You might also notice the rules and coincidences that you didn't meet before, because of the core beliefs and values of this company that make up the deeper culture, knowing that the company's leadership has a serious impact toward spreading the deep organizational culture through their actions, decisions, beliefs, and behaviors. For example, power, authority constitutes an important aspect within the vocabulary of the deep organizational culture. And here we ask, do workers in the organization feel that they have the authority to make and take appropriate decisions? Do they feel that their opinions have been heard and taken care of during the decision-making process? Through modern concepts related to business management, we found that most organizations involve their employees in the decision-making process. They are open-minded to hearing workers' opinions and comments, which greatly affects the organizational culture. Such issues make workers feel greatly appreciated when their opinions are heard and encouraged to participate in the decision-making process. They feel the generation of a sense of authority through participating in discussions and tasks that affect the growth of the organization, which leads to pushing their sense of reality to higher levels of job satisfaction. Among things that organizations must pay attention to is the issue of health, physical and psychological well-being. Therefore, some questions must be raised, such as what is the philosophy of the organization on health, physical and psychological well-being? Are workers encouraged to make healthy choices? Are their choices supported? Today, organizations around the world are increasingly recognizing the critical role of employee engagement, inculcating a workplace culture vocabulary that must be strong, be it physical, emotional, mental, or financial. due to its huge effect on the participation of employees, and their culture that serves the rules of institutional organization. Happy, healthy workers have proven to provide better productivity, lower healthcare costs, and lower rates of disruption to the regulatory environment. So it will be critical to have programs that seek to build a happier workforce, ultimately increasing expected profits. Making these programs as a part of the organizational culture, and regularly assess their impact on employees. For example, if a place is available, the establishment of a gymnasium at the headquarters of the organization will be a good idea to maintain the physical health of workers, and also providing healthy snacks such as fruits and nuts in the snack bar will constitute a positive psychological impact to them. Among the vocabulary of organizational culture, comes both the purpose of the establishment of the organization, as well as the meaning of its existence. Also, the decision-maker must answer some related questions, including, do the employees understand the importance of the organization's vision and mission? Do they know how their job roles contribute to the public good? Purpose and meaning are an integral part of the iceberg, and they are considered as one vocabulary of organizational culture that has gained great importance recently, due to the increasing number of millennials in human resources in organizations. Putting in the effort and helping workers to understand the mission, purpose, and meaning of the organization, helping them to engage in it, and making them realize that they are part of something bigger, which is vital in today's business world. Because when workers know what they are doing, this could lead to the massive participation of them, with their high level of motivation, which will definitely be reflected in the business results. This will only come through organizing training programs, and managing the performance with updated approaches, in order to enhance the organization's culture and core values among staff. Communication in the practical sense inside and outside the organization, is considered sensitive and important at the same time. And it is one of the vocabularies of organizational culture, that affects business results, and it also raises some questions. Such as, whether the communication is frequent and continuous with the work team about what is happening, how transparent is the communication and is the work team listening enough? The answers to these questions indicate that intercommunication at the level of individuals as well as at the level of departments is an integral part of organizational culture, and that the organization which adopts open, transparent, positive, and strong communications will enhance the healthy relations at work, which leads to reducing conflicts, or creating negative things and tracks for the healthy exchange of ideas, suggestions, and comments. The target here is communication that is based on openness, whether it is about success, failure, challenges, or obstacles. As this is reflected in the increased appreciation of workers for the transparency they seek, and the high level of integrity of organizations, business establishments, and companies. Undoubtedly, organizational culture has a strong impact on the performance of workers in different organizations. Because a positive and open culture can create trust and loyalty among workers, which increases their passion and dedication to their work. The question here says, is there an appreciation from the main contributors towards the participation of the strong working force in organizational success? Does the decision-maker understand the pulse of the employees? Does the organization provide the employees with the appropriate environment to share ideas and suggestions? Logically, when organizations consider employee reactions, and take open communication as a path to proactively convey key messages about relevant matters, such as layoffs, wage restructuring, re-engineering, mergers, etc. This spreads an atmosphere of reassurance among the workers, which is reflected in their increased participation in the future. Numerous researches indicates that workers feel connected to their workplace when they are invested in the future and culture of that place. And they feel that their jobs give them a sense of purpose for these jobs, and they also have wonderful relationships with their co-workers. In this regard, the organization's technology platforms, database programs, help towards collecting employee comments, evaluate their mood, and measure their participation in actual work time, which is reflected in building a strong business organization. If there is one cultural characteristic that is guaranteed by every successful leader in the organization, it gives priority to the learning and development among workers. This leads to the promotion of creativity, and also to the improvement of the movement of completing work at the required speed. And also in order to maintain the organization, which is located in an increasingly complex and constantly changing business environment. The decision maker must answer some questions, in order to reach convincing and effective answers related to education and development. For example, are there assurances that the organization will adopt learning and development for its employees? Or there are enough learning and growth opportunities for employees? Do employees face challenges related to setting up new projects? A successful organization can inculcate a culture of learning and development by introducing employees to a well-crafted and detailed educational program that is in line with an individual's growth plan, career progression path, and interests. Sponsoring teamwork and promoting cooperation is part of the organizational culture that values the work of workers as a team to achieve organizational goals. And therefore it is necessary to encourage workers to work in multiple jobs, under the umbrella of team spirit, with clear definitions of powers. In the multi-business and multifunctional environment, a successful organization that adopts a culture of teamwork, planning processes, different ways of thinking, decision-making, etc., will help the daily work goes better by working collectively and not individually. The facts also indicate that, establishing the principles of cooperation and teamwork to be a part of the organizational culture requires support from all levels of employees and different departments, as this matter can help towards implementing strategies that define the different dynamics of cooperation, defining authority, and teamwork itself. By understanding the theory of the Iceberg model of organizational culture, we can reach the root causes of problems in the organization, business institution, or company, and transform human behavior on a large scale, to adopt the organizational culture, because it has a tremendous impact on employee participation, productivity, performance, accumulation of functional and professional experiences. Therefore, decision-makers in different business organizations must understand the nuances of organizational culture. In order to improve overall organizational performance, although only a small part of the culture is reflected above the surface, the tip of the iceberg, and is perceptible to people, the deeper values and beliefs, patterns and structures, can drive an organization deeply toward success. We must emphasize that leadership behavior, beliefs, and procedures play a critical role in influencing the culture within the organization and leading the organizational strategies. When strategy, culture, and leadership within the organization work simultaneously, the organization can be seen based on the following foundations. Staff will sincerely believe that an expected response is the right approach. Staff will understand how the leadership expects them to respond to a particular situation. Staff will ensure that they will be valued for demonstrating organizational values and beliefs.